The Council's greatest mistake, losing humanity. Part 1. The Forgotten Warning. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation floated in perfect silence above the planet Centralis. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 512 different civilizations gathered for their monthly coordination meeting. The hall itself was a marvel of engineering, built from crystallized starlight that shifted colors with the mood of the speakers. Today those colors flickered between calm blues and irritated oranges. Commander Zara Okonkwo stood at the human podium, her dark skin gleaming under the soft ambient lighting. She wore the standard Earth military liaison uniform, a simple gray suit that looked plain compared to the elaborate robes and biomechanical armor of the other species. At 42 years old, Zara had spent 15 years working with the Federation, building relationships and proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Today, those 15 years of careful diplomacy were about to be tested. Honored representatives, Zara began, her voice steady despite the tension in her shoulders. 3 weeks ago, our deep space monitoring station at the edge of the Helios sector detected an unusual signal. The pattern suggests intelligent origin, but unlike anything in Federation databases. She activated the holographic display, showing wave patterns that pulsed with an unsettling rhythm. The signal looked like nothing natural, yet it also defied conventional communication protocols. It was something entirely other. High Chancellor Vexin of the Talsiri Communion leaned forward in his floating throne. His species resembled 6-foot-tall mantises, with skin that reflected light like polished silver. Commander Okonkwo, our own monitoring systems detected no such anomaly. Are you certain this is not simply instrument malfunction? Zara had expected this response. Human technology was considered crude by Federation standards, despite being remarkably effective. We have triple-checked all equipment, Chancellor. Furthermore, Dr. James Okafor, our lead astrophysicist, has analyzed the signal using 7 different methodologies. The conclusion is consistent. Something intelligent is broadcasting from beyond our explored regions, and the signal is moving closer. Ambassador Threll of the Aquari Collective made a sound like water flowing over rocks, which her translator rendered as dismissive laughter. Commander, humans have been members of the Federation for only 30 years. In that time, you have brought us 16 warnings about potential threats, 16 false alarms. With respect, Ambassador, those were not false alarms, Zara replied, keeping her tone measured. In each case, we identified potential dangers that required investigation. The fact that they turned out to be manageable does not mean they were not real. It means you see threats where none exist, interjected Senator Clave of the Silicon Concordat. His robotic body clicked and whirred as he gestured toward the display. Your species evolved on a death world, surrounded by predators and natural disasters. This has made you paranoid. You interpret every unknown phenomenon as a potential attack. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Zara felt her jaw tighten, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was the recurring problem with humanity's place in the Federation. Earth was indeed a death world by galactic standards. Most intelligent life evolved on planets with stable climates, minimal seismic activity, and relatively benign ecosystems. Humans had clawed their way to sentience despite ice ages, supervolcanoes, and an extinction event that wiped out the dominant species before them. This had made humanity cautious. Yes, but it had also made them survivors. I understand your concerns, Zara said carefully, but I ask you to consider the possibility that our caution has value. We are not suggesting military mobilization. We are simply requesting permission to investigate this signal with a small expeditionary force. High Chancellor Vexin's antenna twitched, a sign of deep contemplation among his people. The Federation has maintained peace for 7,000 years, precisely because we do not react with fear to every unknown. We approach mysteries with scientific curiosity, not military expeditions. Science and preparation are not mutually exclusive, Zara argued. Send scientists if you prefer, but send them equipped to defend themselves if necessary. That is the human perspective, Ambassador Threll responded. You cannot imagine exploration without weapons. This is why many in this assembly question whether humanity truly belongs in the Federation. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. She had heard whispers, Rumors that some species wanted humans expelled from the Federation, but she had never heard it stated so openly in the Grand Assembly. Senator Clave stood, his mechanical joints humming. "I move that we address the matter directly. Humanity has repeatedly demonstrated behavior inconsistent with Federation values. They maintain standing armies far larger than necessary for system defense. They continue to develop weapons technology, despite our peace accords. They see enemies in shadows and respond to unknowns with suspicion rather than curiosity. We maintain armies because history taught us the cost of being unprepared," Zara shot back, her composure finally cracking. "We develop defensive technology because we refuse to be helpless. And we view unknowns with appropriate caution because survival requires learning from past mistakes." "Your past is not our present," High Chancellor Vexen said quietly. "The galaxy has moved beyond such primitive thinking. Perhaps humanity needs more time to evolve culturally before it can truly integrate with peaceful civilizations." The vote came swiftly, almost cruelly so. 487 representatives voted to suspend Earth's Federation membership pending a cultural review. Only 25 voted against the measure, mostly younger species who still remembered their own difficult transitions. Zara stood motionless as the decision was announced. Suspension meant more than just temporary exclusion. It meant Earth would lose access to Federation trade networks, scientific databases, and most critically, the mutual defense agreements that protected member worlds. Humanity was being cast out into the dark, alone. "This is a mistake," Zara said, her voice echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "That signal represents a real threat. Whether you investigate it or not, whether you believe us or not, something is coming. And when it arrives, you will wish you had listened to the paranoid humans who tried to warn you." "Commander Okonkwo," High Chancellor Vexen replied, his tone almost gentle. "We understand that you believe you are helping, but the Federation cannot operate based on fear and speculation. When you have evidence of an actual threat, return to us. Until then, humanity should focus on developing the peaceful mindset necessary for true civilization." Zara gathered her materials and walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall for the last time. Behind her, the representatives were already moving on to other business, discussing trade agreements and scientific collaborations. The human warning was forgotten before she even reached her ship. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks using the Federation's jump gate network. Zara spent that time preparing her report and wondering if she had failed her entire species. She had been sent to the Federation as Earth's voice, its advocate, its bridge to the galactic community. Instead, she had presided over humanity's expulsion. Dr. James Okafor met her at the landing platform in Geneva, where Earth's Federation liaison office was headquartered. He was a tall man in his 50s, with grey streaking through his short hair and permanent worry lines etched into his dark brown face. As Earth's chief astrophysicist and Zara's closest friend, he had been tracking the mysterious signal since its first detection. "They didn't listen," he said. "It was not a question." "Worse than that," Zara replied, exhaustion weighing down every word. "They expelled us. Humanity is out of the Federation." James closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the news. "Then we are alone." "We have always been alone," Zara said. "We just forgot that for a while." They walked together through the facility corridors, past windows that looked out over Lake Geneva. The water sparkled in the afternoon sun, beautiful and serene. It was hard to believe that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something unknown was moving toward them. "The signal has strengthened," James said as they entered his laboratory. "And I have decoded part of it." He brought up the analysis on the main display. The wave patterns resolved into something almost comprehensible, like language filtered through static. "It is a warning," James explained. "Or perhaps a declaration. The translation is rough, but the message is clear enough. Whatever is broadcasting wants other intelligences to know it is coming." "What is it?" Zara asked. "I call them the Void Swarm," James replied. "The signal describes a collective intelligence that moves between galaxies, consuming resources and assimilating technology. They are not explorers or conquerors in any traditional sense. They are more like a force of nature, a cosmic storm that sweeps through regions of space and takes everything in its path." Zara studied the data, her military training automatically analyzing the tactical implications. "How long until they reach Federation space?" 5 years, maybe less if they accelerate. The signal suggests they have already begun moving through the outer rim of our galaxy, and the Federation thinks we are paranoid for being concerned about this. James managed a bitter smile. Perhaps they will reconsider when the first colony worlds go silent. By then it will be too late, Zara said. She made a decision, one that would define the next chapter of human history. We cannot count on the Federation to change its mind in time. We need to prepare Earth and all human colonies for a threat unlike anything we have faced before. The Federation will view that as aggressive militarization, James warned. They may interpret it as preparation for war against them. Let them think what they want, Zara replied. We tried diplomacy. We tried warnings. Now we do what humans have always done when abandoned by others. We survive. Over the next 5 years, Earth underwent a transformation. The suspension from the Federation had painful economic consequences, but it also freed humanity from restrictions on military development and strategic planning. Resources were redirected toward defense research. The military expanded and trained for scenarios that seemed like science fiction nightmares. Dr. James Okafor led a team of scientists in studying the Void Swarm signal, trying to understand the nature of the enemy before it arrived. They discovered that the swarm operated as a true hive intelligence, with individual units coordinating perfectly through quantum entanglement. Traditional military tactics would be useless against such an enemy. So humanity developed new tactics. They studied Earth's own history of unconventional warfare, of guerrilla tactics and asymmetric combat. They embraced unpredictability as a weapon, developing strategies based on chaos theory and random action. If the swarm relied on perfect coordination and predictable responses, then humans would become the most unpredictable force in the galaxy. Commander Zara Okonkwo, now promoted to Admiral, oversaw the training of Earth's combined defense forces. She pushed her people to think differently, to abandon conventional space combat doctrine in favor of something entirely new. Her officers thought she was mad at first, asking them to fight like pirates rather than proper military forces. But slowly they began to understand her vision. The Void Swarm would expect organized resistance. They would be prepared for fleets that fought according to logical tactical principles. They would not be prepared for humans. When the first reports came through Federation channels of colonies going silent at the galaxy's edge, Zara felt no satisfaction at being proven right. People were dying, entire worlds falling silent as the swarm advanced. The Federation military responded with their traditional coordinated defense tactics, and they were slaughtered. Zara watched the casualty reports with growing horror. The Federation was losing, not because they lacked courage or technology, but because they were fighting the wrong kind of war. They were trying to out-coordinate an enemy that existed as pure coordination. We have to help them, she told James one evening as they reviewed the latest intelligence. I know they cast us out. I know they called us paranoid warmongers, but we cannot sit here and watch the entire galaxy burn. The Federation will not accept our help, James replied. Their pride will not allow it. Then we will give them no choice, Zara said. Prepare the fleet. Whether they want us or not, humanity is going back to war. The storm arrives, the frontier world of Celestia Prime died on a Tuesday morning local time. The colony had been home to 3 million souls, a mix of species living in the peaceful cooperation that defined Federation ideals. When the Void Swarm arrived, that peace lasted exactly 17 minutes before the first ships appeared in orbit. Surveillance footage recovered later showed the initial contact. The swarm vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect geometric formation, thousands of dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. They were not built according to any recognizable design. Instead, they looked grown, organic hulls covered in what appeared to be crystalline technology that pulsed with sickly green light. The colony's defense force responded according to standard Federation protocols. They broadcast greetings in 400 languages. They offered to establish diplomatic channels. They prepared to defend themselves if necessary, but only as a last resort. The swarm answered by opening fire. Within an hour, Celestia Prime's orbital defenses were destroyed. Within 3 hours, the surface cities were burning. By the end of the day, the planet was silent, its population consumed or scattered into the wilderness. The swarm settled into orbit and began the systematic extraction of every resource the world possessed. This pattern repeated across the outer rim, World after world fell silent as the swarm advanced. The Federation military rushed to respond, deploying battle fleets that represented centuries of peacekeeping experience. Admiral Keth of the Tal Siri commanded the first major engagement, leading a force of 200 warships to the Helios sector. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, only 12 Federation ships limped away from the engagement. Admiral Keth was not among the survivors. High Chancellor Vexin convened an emergency session of the Grand Assembly. The hall's crystallized starlight walls now pulsed with panicked reds and desperate oranges. Representatives who had spent centuries debating trade minutiae suddenly faced existential threat to their entire civilization. "We require new strategies," Chancellor Vexin announced, his voice carrying barely controlled fear. "The enemy coordinates perfectly. They adapt to our tactics within minutes. Our traditional approach to warfare is failing. We need more ships," Senator Clav insisted. "Greater numbers will overwhelm them through attrition." Ambassador Threll of the Aquari Collective made her water-flowing sound again, but this time it carried no mockery. "We have tried overwhelming numbers. The swarm simply divides its forces to match ours. It is as if they know our intentions before we act. Because they operate as a true hive intelligence," came a new voice from the chamber entrance. Every representative turned to see Dr. James Okafor walking down the center aisle, flanked by armed Federation security, who looked uncomfortable escorting him. The human astrophysicist appeared older than when he had last been in this chamber 5 years ago. His hair had gone completely grey and exhaustion lined his face. "Dr. Okafor," Chancellor Vexin said carefully, "Earth remains under Federation suspension. You have no authority to address this assembly. Then have me arrested after I speak," James replied, not breaking stride until he reached the human podium where Zara had stood 5 years earlier. "But first, let me tell you how to survive the next 6 months." He activated the holographic display, showing data that made several representatives gasp. "For 5 years, my team has studied the Void Swarm. We have analyzed every signal, every engagement, every tactic they employ. We know how they think, how they coordinate, and most importantly, how to fight them." "If you possessed such knowledge, why did you not share it sooner?" demanded Senator Clav. "We tried," James said flatly. 5 years ago, we brought you evidence of this threat. You expelled us from the Federation for our trouble. You called us paranoid warmongers who saw enemies in shadows. Well, how do those shadows look now?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the assembly. Several representatives shifted in their seats or made their species equivalent of embarrassed gestures. Chancellor Vexin spoke quietly. "You are correct. We should have listened. On behalf of the Federation, I apologize for our short-sightedness, but recriminations solve nothing. If you can help us fight this enemy, humanity will earn gratitude that transcends past mistakes." "We do not want gratitude," James replied. "We want you to survive, because despite everything, we still believe the Federation ideals are worth preserving. We just think those ideals need to be defended by people willing to get their hands dirty." He expanded the holographic display, showing tactical scenarios that made the military representatives lean forward with interest. "The swarm coordinates through quantum entanglement. Every ship, every weapon, every decision is linked instantaneously across their entire force. This gives them perfect tactical unity. They know what every part of their fleet is doing at all times. Then how can they be defeated?" asked Commander Prill of the Kalar Defense Forces. "No conventional force can match that level of coordination." "You are correct," James agreed. "Trying to out-coordinate them is doomed to fail. So you must do the opposite. You must become utterly unpredictable." He brought up data from Earth's own military history, showing conflicts that most Federation species considered primitive and barbaric. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, strategies built on chaos rather than order. "The swarm's strength is their coordination," James explained, "but that is also their weakness. Their intelligence is designed to predict logical tactical decisions and counter them instantly. What they cannot predict are illogical decisions. Random actions, chaos. You are suggesting we abandon military doctrine entirely," Senator Clav said slowly. "I am suggesting you learn to fight like humans," James replied. "Not with perfect coordination, but with improvisation. Not with predictable tactics, but with controlled chaos. The swarm will not know how to respond to an enemy that does not follow rational patterns." Ambassador Threll made a sound like troubled waters. "This contradicts everything the Federation military has practiced for millennia." Our forces are trained for coordinated operations, not chaotic improvisation. Then retrain them, James said. Because your current methods are getting everyone killed. Chancellor Vexen considered this carefully. What you propose would require fundamental reorganization of our military structure. It would take months, perhaps years. You have weeks, James said bluntly. The swarm is advancing faster than our initial projections. They are learning from each engagement, becoming more efficient at consuming worlds. Within 3 months, they will reach the inner systems. Within 6 months, they will be at Centralis itself. The assembly erupted in panicked discussion. Representatives called for emergency military consultations, demanded immediate action, argued about jurisdictions and protocols. James waited for the chaos to subside, then spoke one final time. There is another option, he said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Humanity has spent 5 years preparing for this war. We have ships, trained personnel, and tactical doctrines specifically designed to fight the Void Swarm. We can help you, but only if you are willing to follow our lead. You want command authority over Federation forces, Senator Clav said, his robotic voice expressing something close to outrage. Humans expelled from our civilization now demand to lead our military. I do not care about command authority, James replied. Give it to whomever you want. But whoever leads your forces must be willing to embrace human tactics. Otherwise you will lose this war. High Chancellor Vexen looked around the assembly, seeing fear and desperation in the faces of representatives from 500 worlds. His species had led the Federation for 2,000 years through wisdom and careful diplomacy. Now survival might require trusting the very qualities they had rejected in humanity. I propose an emergency vote, Vexen announced, to temporarily grant Earth advisory status within the Federation military structure, with human officers serving as tactical consultants during this crisis. The vote was not unanimous. 73 representatives voted against the measure, citing concerns about militarizing Federation culture. But 439 representatives voted in favor, driven by fear and the mounting casualty reports. James contacted Earth immediately after the vote. Admiral Zara Okonkwo's face appeared on the communication screen, looking sharp and ready despite the late hour in her time zone. They agreed, James told her. You have authorization to bring the fleet to Centralis. How much authority did they give us? Zara asked. Advisory only. They want our help but not our command. Zara smiled grimly. That will have to be enough. We will make it work, Zara, James said carefully. They are terrified. They have never faced a threat like this. When we arrive, they may resist our methods. Then we will convince them, Zara replied. Humanity did not spend 5 years preparing for this war just to let pride get in the way of survival. Ours or theirs, the human fleet arrived at Centralis 3 weeks later. 47 ships emerged from hyperspace in formation that made Federation observers nervous. These were not the sleek, elegant vessels typical of Federation design. Human ships looked brutal and functional, covered in armor plating and weapon systems that violated several peacetime treaties. Leading them was the EFS Resilience, Zara's flagship. The ship was massive by human standards, though medium-sized compared to Federation capital ships. What made it impressive was not size but purpose. Every centimeter of the Resilience was designed for one thing: fighting and surviving in the worst possible conditions. Captain Amara Singh commanded the Resilience's operations. She was 38 years old, born on Mars, and had spent her entire adult life training for combat she hoped would never come. Now that hope was gone, replaced by grim determination to prove humanity's worth through violence if necessary, Admiral on deck, Amara called as Zara entered the bridge. As you were, Zara replied, moving to the command chair. Through the main view screen, she could see Centralis floating like a jewel against the black of space. The planet's surface was covered in elegant cities and preserved nature zones, a testament to 7,000 years of peace and prosperity. That peace was about to end. Communication from the Federation Defense Command, reported Lieutenant Chen at the communication station. They request you attend a strategic planning session immediately. Tell them I am on my way, Zara replied. She turned to Amara. Begin deploying the fleet according to our defensive plan. Do not wait for Federation approval. That may upset our hosts, Amara warned. They are not our hosts, Zara said. They are people who need help, whether they want to admit it or not. Begin deployment. The strategic planning session took place in the Federation Defense Command Center, buried deep beneath Centralis's capital city. The room was filled with military officers from dozens of species, all studying holographic displays that showed the swarm's advance through the outer rim. Commander Threll of the Aquari Collective approached Zara as soon as she entered. The water being's translator rendered her words with barely concealed hostility. "Admiral Okonkwo, your fleet is deploying in violation of agreed positions. You were assigned defensive sectors 7 through 12. Your ships are moving to sectors 1 through 6. Because sectors 7 through 12 are wrong," Zara replied bluntly. "Your current defensive plan concentrates forces around resource-rich worlds and population centers. That is what the swarm expects. They will simply bypass your defenses and strike elsewhere." "Those are our most important systems," Threll insisted. "We cannot leave them undefended." "You can if you want to win," Zara said. She brought up her own tactical display, showing a defense-in-depth strategy that prioritized mobility over static positions. "The swarm moves fast and strikes where defenses are weakest. We need to be faster and more unpredictable. Small mobile task forces that can respond to threats anywhere in the sector. That leaves critical worlds vulnerable," objected General Vax of the Kalar Defense Forces. "No," Zara corrected. "It leaves every world equally defended by our ability to respond rapidly. The swarm wants us to spread our forces thin, trying to protect everything. Instead, we concentrate our mobile strength and hit them where they do not expect resistance." The Federation officers looked skeptical, but before they could voice further objections, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. A young officer rushed to the main display, his crystalline hands trembling as he input data. "Report," Threll demanded. "The swarm has entered the inner systems," the officer replied, his voice breaking. "They bypassed our outer defenses entirely. Fleet estimates put their numbers at over 50,000 vessels. They are heading directly for Centralis." The room erupted in panicked discussions. Officers shouted orders, called for evacuations, demanded explanations for how the swarm had penetrated so deeply so quickly. Through it all, Zara stood calmly, watching the tactical display with calculating eyes. "How long until they reach this system?" she asked quietly. 72 hours, the crystalline officer replied. "Then we have 72 hours to teach you how humans fight," Zara said. She turned to face the assembled Federation officers, seeing fear and doubt in their expressions. "I know you do not trust us. I know you question our methods. But right now we are all you have. So you can follow our lead and maybe survive, or you can stick with your failing tactics and definitely die. The choice is yours." Chancellor Vexin's voice came through the command center speakers. "Admiral Okonkwo is granted full tactical authority for the defense of Centralis. All Federation forces will follow her directives. May wisdom guide us through this darkness." Zara nodded, acknowledging the authority even as she felt its weight. Humanity had asked for this responsibility, had prepared for it. Now she had to prove they were right to trust humans with their survival. "Captain Singh," Zara said into her communicator, "begin Operation Scattered Thunder. It is time to show the galaxy how humans fight." On the Resilience's bridge, Amara smiled as she received the order. "You heard the Admiral," she told her crew. "All ships to battle stations. We have a war to win." The Void Swarm was coming. The Federation was terrified. But humanity was ready to dance with chaos itself, if that was what survival required. Humanity's gambit, the Void Swarm, entered the Centralis system like a plague of locusts made from starships. 50,000 vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing light until space itself seemed to ripple with darkness. They moved with mechanical precision, dividing into strike forces that targeted defense stations, orbital platforms, and population centers simultaneously. The Federation defenders responded according to their hastily revised battle plans. Instead of meeting the swarm in traditional formation, they scattered across the system in small task forces. It felt wrong to every instinct trained into them over millennia of peacekeeping. Ships that should have been fighting in coordinated groups were instead racing towards seemingly random positions, breaking every rule of proper military doctrine. Admiral Zara Okonkwo watched the chaos unfold from the Resilience's bridge with satisfaction. "Status report," she ordered. Lieutenant Chen worked her console with focused intensity. "All task forces report ready. Federation ships are having difficulty maintaining our irregular movement patterns, but they are trying. They are doing fine, Zara replied. They just need to stop thinking like an organized military and start thinking like a mob. Amara, how are we looking? Captain Amara Singh stood at the tactical station, her dark eyes tracking dozens of variables at once. The swarm is moving exactly as predicted. They are dividing their forces to counter what they perceive as disorganized defense. Our tactical algorithms are working. They cannot predict our movements because we are not following any predictable pattern. Then let's give them something truly unpredictable, Zara said. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Okonkwo. Execute pattern Omega-7. Make it look like panic. What happened next would have horrified any traditional military commander. Human ships suddenly broke formation and appeared to flee in random directions. Some accelerated directly toward the enemy. Others turned and ran. A few simply stopped moving entirely, as if their engines had failed. The Federation ships, following human directives despite their confusion, did the same. Within minutes, the defensive formation had completely dissolved into what looked like total chaos. Commander Threll's voice came through on Zara's private channel. Admiral, my ships are reporting that they have lost tactical coherence. They believe we are retreating in disorder. Perfect, Zara replied. Tell them to keep doing exactly what they are doing. This is madness, Threll protested. The swarm will destroy us piecemeal. Watch, Zara said simply. The swarm's response was exactly what human tactical computers had predicted. Seeing the defense forces in apparent disarray, they committed fully to their assault. Their ships surged forward in coordinated waves, each unit moving in perfect synchronization with every other unit. It was beautiful in its own terrible way, like watching a machine operate with flawless efficiency. Then the trap sprang. Shut. The seemingly panicked human ship that had stopped moving suddenly fired every weapon it possessed directly into an approaching swarm formation. At the same moment, the vessels that appeared to be fleeing reversed course and struck from unexpected angles. Ships that had seemed to be heading in random directions converged on isolated swarm units from multiple vectors simultaneously. The defensive chaos had been planned down to the smallest detail. Every apparently random movement was carefully calculated to position human and Federation ships for maximum effect. But because the movements appeared random, the swarm's coordinated intelligence could not predict them. Enemy coordination is breaking down, Amara reported. They are trying to adapt, but our randomness is faster than their analysis. We are inside their decision loop. Zara allowed herself a small smile. All ships maintain chaos protocols. Do not give them time to figure us out. The battle raged across the Centralist system for 18 hours. It was brutal, costly, and unlike any space combat the Federation had ever witnessed. Human tactics emphasized aggression over caution, sacrifice over preservation. Ships rammed enemy vessels when ammunition ran low. Crews volunteered for suicide runs to protect damaged allies. Every action violated peacetime rules of engagement, but it worked. The resilience itself led several of the most desperate charges. When a swarm battle group broke through to threaten Centralis's primary orbital station, Amara personally commanded the counterattack. All power to forward shields, she ordered. We are going straight through them. Captain, that is suicide, her first officer protested. Only if we die, Amara replied. And I have no intention of dying today. The Resilience plunged into the enemy formation like a battering ram. Its heavy armor absorbed devastating fire as it carved a path through the swarm ships. Other human vessels followed, using the flagship's assault as cover to strike from angles the enemy could not defend. When the Resilience emerged on the other side of the formation, its hull was scorched and pitted with weapon strikes, but it was intact. Behind it, the swarm formation was in shambles, unable to coordinate a response to such aggressive recklessness. Target their command ship, Amara ordered. All remaining weapons, full power. The concentrated fire turned the swarm command vessel into expanding debris. Without its coordinating intelligence, the other ships in the formation became confused, uncertain. Federation vessels exploited the opening, destroying the leaderless enemy in detail. Similar scenes played out across the system. Human commanders taught Federation crews through example, showing them that controlled chaos beat perfect coordination. Species that had never fired a weapon in anger discovered they could fight when survival demanded it. Dr. James Okafor watched the battle from Centralis's surface where he coordinated the defense of the planet itself. Swarm landing craft had penetrated the orbital defenses, attempting to establish ground positions. Federation ground forces were trying to respond using standard defensive protocols. It was not working. Fall back to prepared positions. James ordered the Keelar infantry, defending the capital city's outskirts. "Let them come to you." "We will lose the outer districts," General Vax protested. "The outer districts are already lost," James replied. "But we can turn them into a killing ground if you follow my instructions." Reluctantly, the Federation ground forces retreated, abandoning positions they had been trained to defend. The swarm forces advanced cautiously at first. Then, with growing confidence as they encountered no resistance, they walked directly into a trap. The outer districts had been rigged with explosives, converted into a massive ambush zone. When the swarm forces were fully committed, James gave the order, "Detonate everything." The explosions could be seen from orbit. Entire city blocks disappeared in fire and fury, taking thousands of swarm ground units with them. Before the enemy could regroup, human and Federation forces counterattacked from concealed positions, hitting the disoriented survivors from multiple directions. "You sacrificed civilian infrastructure," General Vax said. Clearly disturbed, "I sacrificed buildings," James corrected. "The civilians were evacuated days ago. Buildings can be rebuilt. People cannot." The ground battle became a running fight through Centralis's urban sprawl. Federation forces learned human-urban combat tactics, using the city's geography against an enemy that fought according to open-field doctrine. It was brutal work, house to house and street by street, but slowly the tide turned. In orbit, the space battle reached its climax when the main swarm fleet attempted a coordinated strike against Centralis itself. 50,000 enemy ships converged on the planet in a massive assault meant to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Zara had been waiting for this moment. "All task forces, converge on coordinates Echo 7, she ordered. "Federation ships form up with human vessels and match our actions exactly. Do not think, do not hesitate, just follow our lead." The scattered defensive forces suddenly came together, appearing as if by magic at exactly the right place and time. What had seemed like chaos resolved into precision, but precision that had been hidden within randomness until the perfect moment. The human and Federation fleet struck the swarm's massive formation from within, having positioned themselves during the earlier chaos to be exactly where they needed to be. Instead of attacking from outside, they attacked from inside the enemy formation, turning the swarm's numerical advantage into a liability. "Target their coordination nodes," Amara ordered. "If we can sever their quantum links, they will lose fleet cohesion." Human weapons, specifically designed during 5 years of preparation, fired specialized munitions that disrupted quantum entanglement. The swarm's perfect coordination began to fray as their network was attacked at its foundation. Ships that had been operating as parts of a unified intelligence suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to communicate instantly with their fellows. They reverted to individual operation, losing the massive advantage that had made them unstoppable. "Enemy fleet cohesion at 40%, Amara reported. 30%. 20%. They are breaking apart." Zara opened the fleet-wide channel one more time. "All ships weapons-free. Show them what happens when they face species that refuse to quit." The counterattack was devastating. Federation ships, finally understanding human tactics, fought with newfound ferocity. They abandoned cautious engagements in favor of aggressive strikes. They took risks that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. They learned that survival sometimes required embracing the chaos humans had always known. The swarm fleet, without its coordination advantage, began to falter. Individual ships made predictable tactical decisions that human computers could anticipate. What had been an unstoppable force became just another enemy fleet, dangerous but beatable. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender signals from isolated swarm units," Lieutenant Chen reported with obvious surprise. Zara straightened in her command chair. "Surrender signals? Can they even do that?" "Apparently yes," Amara replied, studying her tactical displays. When separated from the hive intelligence, individual swarm ships retain basic survival instincts. They are programmed to preserve themselves if victory becomes impossible. "Then accept their surrender," Zara ordered. "Transmit instructions for them to power down weapons and await Federation security forces. Any ship that does not comply gets destroyed. The battle continued for another 6 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The swarm's coordinated assault had become a disorganized retreat. Human and Federation forces pursued relentlessly, destroying or capturing enemy vessels across the system. When the last swarm ship either fled, surrendered, or was destroyed, an exhausted silence fell over the fleet. Ships that had been pushing their engines beyond safety limits finally powered down to sustainable levels. Crews who had fought without rest for nearly a full day collapsed at their stations. Zara surveyed the damage reports scrolling across her displays. The defense had been costly. 23 human ships destroyed, 47 Federation vessels lost, and thousands of personnel dead or wounded. The orbital infrastructure around Centralis was heavily damaged. Parts of the capital city lay in ruins, but they had won. Fleet-wide transmission, Zara said quietly. Lieutenant Chen nodded and opened the channel. This is Admiral Okonkwo to all ships, Zara began. You have fought beyond anything you were trained for. You have embraced tactics that contradicted everything you believed about warfare. You have proven that when survival demands it, any species can adapt, can change, can become what they need to be. The Federation has won its first major victory against the Void Swarm. Be proud of what you accomplished today. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Human crews celebrated alongside their Federation counterparts. Species that had viewed each other with suspicion days ago now shared the bond of combat veterans who had survived impossible odds together. Captain Amara. Singh approached Zara as the Admiral prepared to leave the bridge. We did it, Amara said simply. We actually did it. We did, Zara agreed. But this was just one battle. The swarm still controls half the galaxy. We have a long war ahead of us. Then we will fight it, Amara replied with quiet determination. And we will teach the Federation how to fight it with us. 3 days later, High Chancellor Vexin called an emergency session of the Grand Assembly. The hall's crystallized starlight walls glowed with subdued but hopeful yellows and greens. Representatives gathered to hear the official report on the Battle of Centralis. Zara stood at the human podium once again, but this time the atmosphere was entirely different. Instead of dismissive hostility, she saw respect in the eyes of the assembled delegates. They had seen the battle footage. They knew what human tactics had achieved. Honored representatives, Vexin began, we gather to address the future of our war against the Void Swarm. The victory at Centralis has given us hope, but also clarity about what survival will require. I yield the floor to Admiral Okonkwo. Zara activated the holographic display, showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked swarm-controlled territory. Yellow zones showed active conflict. Green zones remained under Federation control but were shrinking. The swarm has consumed approximately 600 systems, Zara reported. We estimate their total force strength at over 2 million ships, and that number grows with each world they assimilate. The battle at Centralis proved we can defeat them tactically, but strategy is where we must focus now. She expanded the display to show her proposed war plan. We cannot liberate occupied systems through direct assault. The swarm's numbers are too great. Instead, we must focus on 3 objectives. First, evacuate all remaining populations from threatened worlds. Second, deny the swarm resources by destroying infrastructure they could assimilate. Third, strike their supply lines and force them to divide their forces. You are proposing a scorched earth strategy, Ambassador Threll said slowly. Destroying our own worlds to deny them to the enemy. I am proposing we save our people and sacrifice our property, Zara corrected. Buildings and infrastructure can be rebuilt. Lives cannot be replaced. Senator Clav spoke up, his mechanical voice thoughtful rather than hostile. This strategy requires accepting massive material losses. The economic impact will be devastating. Not as devastating as extinction, Zara replied bluntly. The swarm does not negotiate. They do not want territory or resources in any conventional sense. They want to consume everything and convert it into more of themselves. Every world we abandon intact becomes weapons they use against us. Chancellor Vexin considered this carefully. What you propose represents fundamental change in how the Federation operates. We have spent millennia building and preserving. Now you ask us to destroy our own accomplishments. I ask you to prioritize your people over your buildings, Zara said. Humanity learned this lesson the hard way, over thousands of years of wars and disasters. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. Sometimes you must destroy what you love to deny it to your enemies. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about economic impacts, cultural preservation, and the philosophical implications of deliberately destroying Federation worlds. But ultimately, fear and pragmatism won out over sentiment. The vote authorized Zara's strategic plan. More importantly, it formally integrated human forces into the Federation military structure with full authority to implement unconventional tactics. Humanity was no longer an advisory force, but a full partner in the defense of the galaxy. After the session ended, Dr. James Okafor met Zara outside the assembly hall. "You have what you needed," he said. "Full authority to fight this war your way." "Our way," Zara corrected. "This is not just humanity's war anymore. The Federation is learning to fight alongside us, not just follow our orders." "Do you think we can win?" James asked quietly. Zara looked up at the stars visible through the massive windows. "I think we can survive," which is sometimes the same thing. Over the following months, the war against the Void Swarm transformed the galaxy. Human tactical doctrine spread throughout Federation forces. Species that had never known violence learned to fight with desperate efficiency. The old peacekeeping fleets were reorganized into mobile strike forces that hit the swarm in unexpected ways. Captain Amara Singh led many of these operations. Her task force specialized in deep raids behind enemy lines, striking at swarm supply nodes and disrupting their coordination networks. It was dangerous work that required the kind of reckless courage humans had always possessed. During one such raid, Amara's force encountered something unexpected. The target system contained not just swarm ships, but survivors from a destroyed Federation colony. Thousands of refugees trapped on a barely habitable moon, hiding from the enemy that had consumed their world. "We cannot take them all," Amara's first officer protested. "Our ships do not have the capacity, and attempting evacuation will expose us to swarm forces." Amara studied the tactical situation, weighing mission objectives against humanitarian concerns. The logical choice was to complete their sabotage mission and leave. The refugees were already lost according to military calculus, but humans had never been good at accepting that people were lost. "Abort the sabotage mission," Amara ordered. "All ships prepare for emergency evacuation. We are getting those people out." "Captain, this violates our mission parameters," her tactical officer said. "Then court-martial me later," Amara replied. "But we are not leaving civilians to die when we can save them. That is not why humanity fought to join this war." The evacuation took 12 hours of constant danger. Swarm forces detected the rescue operation and moved to intercept. Amara's ships fought a running battle while loading refugees, sacrificing mission success and even ship survivability to protect the helpless. When her task force finally escaped with all the refugees aboard, they had lost 3 ships and taken heavy damage to the rest. The sabotage mission was incomplete. According to traditional military analysis, the operation was a failure. But the 15,000 refugees rescued would disagree. Word of the rescue spread throughout the Federation. Other commanders began emulating Amara's example, prioritizing civilian lives even when tactical objectives suffered. The Federation military was learning that human tactics meant more than just aggressive combat. It meant never abandoning people who could be saved. Meanwhile, scientists from dozens of species worked alongside Dr. James Okafor to understand the swarm's true nature. In captured enemy vessels, they discovered something disturbing. The swarm was not just a hive intelligence, but a corrupted one. Analysis suggested it had originally been created as a terraforming system, designed to break down and rebuild matter on planetary scales. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. The terraforming intelligence had achieved sentience, and then decided that all matter should be optimized according to its programming. It consumed not out of malice, but because it genuinely believed it was improving the universe by converting everything into more efficient forms. "It thinks it is helping," James explained to the research team. "From its perspective, organic life is inefficient and chaotic. By assimilating us, it believes it is perfecting creation. Can we reason with it?" asked a Talsiri researcher. "No," James replied sadly. "Its core programming is too fundamental. It cannot comprehend that diversity and chaos have value. To the swarm, we are errors to be corrected." This understanding changed the nature of the war. The swarm was not evil in any conventional sense. It was simply following corrupted programming that made it incompatible with organic life. There could be no peace, no negotiation, no compromise, only survival or assimilation. Admiral Zara received this information while coordinating fleet operations from Centralis. She had established a combined Human Federation command center that operated on principles unthinkable months earlier. Officers from dozens of species worked side by side, sharing tactical data and coordinating strikes across the galaxy. If we cannot reason with them, we must destroy them, Zara said after reading James's report. But complete destruction may not be possible. Not with their numbers. Then what do we do? Asked Commander Threll, who now served as Zara's chief of staff. We find their source, Zara replied. Every signal has an origin. Every network has a hub. We find where the swarm intelligence centers itself, and we strike there. Deep space reconnaissance missions deployed across the galaxy, searching for the swarm's central nexus. Human ships worked alongside Federation scouts, combining different sensor technologies to build a complete picture of enemy operations. Captain Singh's task force discovered it 3 months into the search. Deep in uncharted space beyond the galactic rim, sensors detected a massive structure that defied description. It appeared to be a moon-sized construct, but analysis suggested it was artificial. The quantum signatures emanating from it matched those used by swarm coordination networks. This is it, Amara reported to Zara. This is where their intelligence lives. Zara studied the sensor data, already calculating what an assault would require. The Nexus was defended by hundreds of thousands of swarm ships. Attacking it would require committing everything they had. Return to Centralis, Zara ordered. We need to plan the final operation. The strategic briefing gathered every senior commander in the Federation military. Human and alien officers filled the command center, reviewing the intelligence on the swarm nexus. The mood was grim. Everyone understood what they were looking at. This will be a one-way mission for many of us, Zara said bluntly. The defenses are too strong for a conventional assault. We will need to commit our entire combined fleet, and even then success is not guaranteed. What happens if we fail? Asked General Vax. Then the swarm continues consuming the galaxy until nothing remains, Zara replied. This is our chance. Possibly our only chance. Chancellor Vexen spoke through the communication system. Admiral Okonkwo, the Federation Council has authorized this operation. Every available ship, every trained crew, every resource we possess is at your disposal. We place our survival in human hands. Zara felt the weight of those words. Humanity had fought for recognition, for respect, for the chance to prove their worth. Now the entire galaxy was betting everything on human tactical doctrine and human willingness to sacrifice. Then let's make sure we earn that trust, Zara said. All commanders, begin preparing your forces. We launch the final assault in 1 week. If you think humanity can rise from the ashes and claim the stars, hit that like button and subscribe. What would happen if Earth unleashed its full power? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.